The laughter began softly. It always did. A ripple of clicking mandibles. A flutter of bioluminescent frills. A low, harmonic hum passing through the amphitheater like a shared joke too obvious to explain. The Grand Academy of Xiron had seen 10,000 species pass through its halls, but never once had the laughter failed to sound the same. Curious, amused, superior. The Academy was older than most civilizations in attendance. Its floating terraces drifted in slow, dignified orbits around a pale blue star, each platform etched with the symbols of long-extinct empires. Gravity was tuned to a gentle median, comfortable for wings, hooves, tendrils, and limbs alike. The air was a carefully balanced mixture, rich with scents no single species could fully perceive. It was here that the galaxy's brightest young minds were gathered, future diplomats, strategists, scholars, and explorers. And it was here that the humans stood alone. Elias Mercer adjusted the strap of his satchel and tried not to look like he noticed the staring. He was tall by human standards, but surrounded by aliens that ranged from towering, exoskeletal giants to hovering clouds of semi-sentient gas. He looked fragile, soft, unarmored. A creature with 4 eyes and polished obsidian skin leaned toward its companion and whispered through a translator node. "Is that really it?" Another replied, "That's the human. From Earth." A third voice joined in, openly amused. "The Deathworlders sent that." The laughter grew louder. Elias had been warned. Earth's diplomats had prepared him carefully. They don't understand you yet. They judge strength by claws and plasma. Let them laugh. Still, knowing something and living it were very different experiences. He took his assigned seat, a smooth crescent of adaptive material that reshaped itself politely around his human frame, and folded his hands in his lap. Across the amphitheater, Professor K.R.R. Thel observed him with mild interest. K.R.R. Thel was a Virexian, an insectoid species with a crystalline thorax and wings that shimmered like fractured glass. As one of the Academy's senior educators, K.R.R. Thel had seen arrogance rise and fall across centuries. But humans were new and puzzling. They survived a Class 12 death world, K.R.R. Thel said to the assembly, voice resonating through translator fields. Yet they appear underwhelming. A student from the Dravik clan snorted. Survival does not equal sophistication, Professor. They lack natural armor. No venom. No psionic resonance. Barely any claws, another added. The laughter returned. Elias kept his gaze forward. He reminded himself why he was here. Not to impress. Not to dominate. But to learn. The holographic star map above the amphitheater shifted, resolving into the Academy's crest. Professor K.R.R. Thel raised one delicate limb. Settle yourselves. Today marks the beginning of Cultural Exchange Cycle 7-4. As is tradition, each species will present an aspect of their civilization deemed foundational. A pause. Tomorrow, K.R.R. Thel continued, we will observe the human contribution. That earned another wave of laughter. What could they possibly show? Primitive art? Projectile weapons? Barely contained violence. Elias swallowed. He hadn't been told exactly how tomorrow would go, only that the Academy insisted on a shared experiential exercise. He glanced down at his satchel. Inside, something shifted. A soft, familiar weight. The laughter rolled on, echoing against ancient stone and starlight. No one noticed the quiet human smile. Not yet. By the end of the first cycle, Elias understood something important. The Academy wasn't cruel. It was honest. Every species here wore its strengths openly. The Korthan students flexed armored plates when they laughed. The Aeleri hovered effortlessly, wings humming with contained energy. Even the small ones, gelatinous, feathered, scaled, carried visible proof of survival. Humans did not. That absence unsettled them. During the midday recess, Elias stood near the observation balcony, looking out at the pale star around which the Academy drifted. Light bent across the transparent barriers, turning space into a quiet ocean of fire and dust. Behind him, voices whispered without shame. They look unfinished. How did they survive predators? Perhaps they bred quickly and overwhelmed their ecosystems. Typical death world chaos. Elias exhaled slowly. On Earth, silence meant danger. Here, silence meant judgment. A shadow fell across him. You do not react, came a calm, clicking voice. Elias turned. Professor Arthel stood beside him, wings folded neatly, multifaceted eyes reflecting the distant star. I'm listening, Elias replied. Most species grow defensive when evaluated, Arthel said. You do not. Elias smiled faintly. We're used to being underestimated. Arthel studied him for a long moment. Tomorrow, the professor said, you will participate in the Academy's shared bond demonstration. Elias stiffened. Shared bond. Yes. Many species bring symbiotic organisms. Companions. Bio-linked entities. A pause. You were instructed to bring one. Elias nodded. I did. Arthel tilted its head. Your records list known natural symbiotes. No, Elias agreed. We don't have those. Another pause. Then what have you brought, human? Elias looked back at the stars. A friend. For the first time, Arthel's wings twitched in something almost like uncertainty. That night, in his assigned rest chamber, Elias opened his satchel. A warm head nudged his hand. There you are, he whispered. Two amber eyes looked up at him, calm and trusting. A tail thumped softly against the adaptive floor. Max didn't understand alien academies or galactic judgment. Max understood Elias. And that was enough. The amphitheater was fuller than before. Word had spread. The humans were presenting today. Curiosity mixed with anticipation as students gathered, some perched, some coiled, some hovering in lazy orbits above their seats. Professor Arthel floated to the center. Today, the professor announced, we observe the bonds that define civilizations. One by one, species presented their companions. A Dravik warrior stood beside a living weapon, a scaled predator genetically bound to its nervous system. The crowd murmured in approval. An Aeleri child summoned a swarm of glowing symbiotes that responded to her emotions like music made alive. Applause followed each display. Then the lights dimmed slightly. Human Elias Mercer, Arthel said. You may proceed. The laughter returned, quieter this time, but sharper. Elias stepped forward. He placed his satchel on the floor and opened it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a medium-sized creature padded out. For limbs, soft fur, no armor, no venom, no visible weapons. A dog. Silence spread like a held breath. That's it. A prey animal. It's unaugmented. Is it defective? Max sat down beside Elias and looked up at him, tail wagging slowly. Elias knelt and rested a hand on Max's head. This, Elias said calmly, is Max. A student burst into open laughter. That thing wouldn't survive a cycle on my homeworld. Max yawned. The sound echoed softly through the amphitheater. Elias smiled. You asked us to bring what defines us, he said. This is it. Professor Arthel leaned forward. Explain. Elias met the gaze of 1,000 alien eyes. Humans don't bond through dominance, he said. We bond through choice. A ripple of confusion moved through the crowd. This species, Elias continued, was once our rival. A predator. Stronger than us. Faster than us. Max leaned into his leg. We didn't conquer them, Elias said softly. We befriended them. The laughter had stopped completely. No one noticed yet that several predatory species had gone very still. The silence did not end when Elias finished speaking. It thickened. Across the amphitheater, predators who had once sneered now leaned forward. Species who measured worth in muscle mass and kill ratios felt something unfamiliar stir behind their eyes. Confusion. Professor Arthel broke the stillness. Your bond, the professor said carefully, appears emotional. Yes, Elias replied without hesitation. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Emotion was considered unstable, inefficient, dangerous. A bond based on emotion, said a Corthan student, flexing armored plates, would fail under threat. Several nodded. Arthel turned slightly. The Academy allows demonstrations. Elias felt his stomach tighten. This was earlier than expected. What kind of demonstration? Elias asked. A controlled stress response, Arthel replied. To observe instinct. Before Elias could object, the floor around them shifted. A circular barrier rose, transparent but thick, isolating Elias and Max at the center of the amphitheater. Energy hummed softly through it. Max's ears perked up. He stood. Elias knelt instantly, placing a calming hand on his back. It's okay, buddy. The translators carried the low, soothing tone perfectly. From the far side of the chamber, a gate opened. Something stepped through. It was a training construct, semi-organic, plated, and armed with simulated claws capable of lethal force if allowed full power, used to test reflexes and survival instincts across species. The crowd leaned forward eagerly. "Observe," a Dravik instructor announced. "The human-prey-animal bond under threat." The construct let out a synthesized roar. Max moved. Not away. Forward. A snarl tore from his chest. Raw, primal, impossibly loud for something so soft-looking. Elias's heart slammed against his ribs. "Max!" The construct advanced. Max placed himself directly in front of Elias. Not attacking. Guarding. The amphitheater erupted into shocked noise. "It's shielding the human. That's illogical. It should flee." Max's body trembled, not with fear, but effort. His teeth bared. His eyes locked on the threat with absolute focus. Elias slowly stood behind him. "Stand down," Elias said quietly. The construct halted mid-step. Its threat sensors were confused. This was not predator behavior. This was not prey behavior. This was something else. Professor Krrthel raised a limb sharply. "Deactivate." The construct powered down. The barrier dissolved. Max turned immediately, pressing his head against Elias's leg, tail wagging uncertainly. Checking. Always checking. Elias knelt and hugged him. "I've got you," he whispered. Across the amphitheater, no one laughed. Not a single sound. Professor Krrthel spoke softly, almost reverently. "The companion chose danger," the professor said, without command. "Yes," Elias replied. "That's the point." The academy changed after that. Not loudly, not officially, but subtly, in ways only those trained in observation would notice. Aliens who once sat far from Elias now found reasons to sit closer. Questions replaced mockery. Silence replaced laughter. A small Illyri floated near Max during the next recess, glowing softly. "Does it understand you?" Elias smiled. "Better than most people." Max wagged his tail. Word spread fast. Not about the human. About the bond. This species keeps predators as family. They risk themselves for weaker beings. They inspire loyalty without force. In the Hall of Comparative Survival, a lecture was quietly rewritten. Humans were moved. Not from the bottom. From the margins. One cycle later, the Academy announced an interspecies emergency simulation, a scenario designed to test cooperative survival under catastrophic conditions. Every species would contribute what they believed to be their greatest strength. When Elias's name appeared on the roster, the murmurs returned, but they were different now. Curious. Wary. Inside the simulation chamber, alarms wailed. Artificial gravity fluctuated. Holographic debris fell like meteor rain. Species reacted as they always had. Predators sought dominance. Strategists sought control. Solitary survivors scattered. Elias dropped to one knee. Max stayed glued to his side. A scream echoed, high-pitched, panicked. A young scholar from a fragile avian species had been trapped beneath collapsed debris. Her wings pinned. Her breathing erratic. Others hesitated. Risk assessment calculated loss. Elias didn't calculate. He ran. Max ran with him. Together, they reached the debris. Elias strained against the weight, muscles screaming. It wasn't enough. Max dug in. Claws scraped. Teeth gripped. A low, determined growl vibrated through the chamber. Together, human and dog, they shifted the wreckage just enough. The avian scholar was free. She clutched Elias, sobbing. Behind them, dozens of aliens watched. They watched a human risk everything. They watched a creature with no obligation stay and fight. And for the first time, a terrifying thought spread through the galaxy's future leaders. If humans treated even their animals like this, what would they do for allies? The emergency simulation ended in silence. Not the relieved kind. The kind that follows realization. Holograms faded. Gravity stabilized. The injured were escorted away. Yet no one moved from their places. Dozens of eyes, compound, luminous, mechanical, organic, remained fixed on one human and one dog. Professor Krrthel did not immediately speak. For the first time in centuries, the Academy's senior observer was uncertain. "What motivates your species?" Krrthel finally asked. "To risk extinction-level harm for those who offer no strategic advantage." Elias wiped sweat from his brow. Max leaned against his leg, exhausted but content. "They're people," Elias said simply. A ripple of confusion moved through the chamber. The avian scholar, Elias continued, isn't my kin. She isn't human. She doesn't advance our position. He looked around the room. But she's alive. And that matters. A Dravik strategist clicked its mandibles sharply. That logic is inefficient. Elias nodded. Absolutely. The word hung there. And yet, Elias added, we're still here. That night, long after the Academy lights dimmed, Professor Kararthel accessed restricted archives. Human history. Wars fought not for territory, but for principles. Rescue missions launched for strangers. Animals pulled from rubble before monuments were rebuilt. And always, the presence of companions. Dogs, cats, creatures humans called family without genetic justification. Kararthel closed the archive slowly. This species, the professor whispered to the empty chamber, evolved alongside loyalty. The announcement shocked the Academy. Human Elias Mercer, Kararthel declared, will lead the cooperative unit in the final evaluation. Gasps echoed. Leadership was not given lightly, especially not to a species once laughed at. The final evaluation was no simulation. It was real. A spatial rift had destabilized near the Academy's orbit, a natural phenomenon capable of tearing through platforms and lives alike. Evacuation required coordination, sacrifice, trust. Species argued instantly. My kind will not take orders from a soft skin. We prioritize our own. We disengage. Elias stepped forward. He didn't shout. He didn't posture. He knelt and looked Max in the eyes. Stay close, he said. Max wagged his tail once. Then Elias stood and addressed the room. I'm not asking you to follow me, he said. I'm asking you to follow each other. Confusion. He pointed to the avian scholar. She flies fastest. She leads evacuation routes. To the Dravik. You're strongest. You hold collapsing structures. To the Aeleri. You communicate fastest. Relay signals. They hesitated. Then Max barked. Sharp. Clear. Confident. Something ancient stirred. Orders were followed. Not because they came from a human, but because they made sense. When the rift finally collapsed harmlessly into nothingness, the Academy still stood. Lives were saved. All of them. The verdict was unanimous. Unprecedented. The human species, Professor Kararthel announced before a full assembly, will be reclassified. Screens lit up. Humanity, cooperative deathworlders. Primary trait, empathic bonding. Secondary trait, extreme loyalty response. The laughter that once greeted humans did not return. It never would. Instead, something else replaced it. Respect. A Corthan approached Elias afterward, lowering its massive frame slightly. If you were to call, it said, would your kind answer? Elias didn't hesitate. Yes. The Corthan nodded slowly. Then we hope you never have to. Max accepted a cautious scratch behind the ears. The galaxy watched. And remembered. Years later, historians would mark this cycle as the beginning of a shift. Alliances formed faster with humans present. Conflicts de-escalated when they mediated. Rescue operations improved dramatically, not because humans were the strongest, but because they refused to leave anyone behind. And always, at human outposts, there were companions, walking beside them, waiting for them, protecting them. Aliens asked once, in a closed council, isn't it dangerous to love something that can be taken from you? A human ambassador replied quietly, yes, then smiled. That's why it matters. Elias stood once more on the observation balcony. Max was older now, slower, still loyal. Stars stretched endlessly before them. Professor Kararthel joined him one last time. We misjudged you, the professor admitted. Elias nodded. You weren't wrong. Kararthel tilted its head. Explain. You saw what we are capable of, Elias said. You just didn't see why. Max leaned against Elias's leg. The galaxy had measured humanity by weapons, by endurance, by survival. But it was never those things that made humans dangerous. It was this. The choice to care, the willingness to protect, the refusal to stand alone. And for the first time, the galaxy understood what it truly meant to be human. Milky Way outro, optional. If this story moved you, subscribe for more human stories from the stars.